such a soft spot for old things, and that's exactly why I love the historical district of Dubai, which most people don't really know about, because we are normally used to seeing the flashy, fancy lifestyle of the new Dubai, but many people don't know that this place actually has a very rich history, and it's full of this beautiful traditional architecture, which I just love. And I particularly appreciate the doors because they are all just works of art. I've wanted to express this in some sort of creative way for the longest time since I've visited, and so I started thinking about how to do this, and luckily the Mental Canvas app came up with this newest challenge, which is to draw a space and show it through their app, and I thought this was the perfect opportunity to try it out. If you don't know, Mental Canvas is an app which lets you draw in 2D, but it makes it look 3D. It's kind of trippy, and honestly I struggle to get my head around the app because you're drawing on a bunch of different planes in order to make it look 3D. But I really love the concept, and now that I have made this video and I have tried it out, I've learned a whole lot, and I'm so excited that I've finally gotten to try this. I find digital art is very hindering at the start of my creative process, so I started off with traditional medium, and because I had a bit of a break, I really wanted to take my time and explore a bit more. So I took a few classes with the London Drawing Group, who introduced me to a few artists and their techniques, namely Julie Merhetu, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and she has these really layered drawings, which I really enjoy, and also Henri Matisse, who's obviously a French artist, very famous, and he does these drawings, or he used to do these drawings with a really long stick. So I kind of combined both styles and came up with a new type of drawing, which, to be honest, it was more just to kind of let go creatively and be very loose and just try and create something new. As you can see me doing here, I started off by sketching just the vague outline of the idea in my head onto my small sketchbook paper, because I kind of got the idea sometime in the early morning and I just wanted to quickly get it down. So it's kind of like an axonometric drawing, and which is kind of like a 3D drawing, and it's got all these doors, and behind it you have the backdrop of the historical district with the trees and the other pieces of architecture, just kind of like this layered drawing, I suppose. Through the drawing class that I took with the London Drawing Group, I quickly realized that the easiest thing to sketch with if you're using a super long stick is charcoal, because it gives you the most depth, it gives you the most color without having to put in a lot of effort, and it's just a lot more, it lends itself a lot more to the looseness and creativity that you have when you are using a long stick. So I started off this drawing on a massive sheet of paper. I think I would say it's probably A1 sized paper, I'm not too sure, but it's big, between A1 and A0. And so I started off with charcoal. I basically started to reference a bunch of pictures that I have saved on my computer that I've taken since I've been to the place, and I basically just started drawing. There was really no logic to it. I kind of just started drawing, and to be honest, I find these kind of drawings where I have to put my imagination into things, or I have to think a bit more about these things, I find them quite difficult, probably because I'm so used to drawing just straight from life. And to be honest, that's not a bad thing. Like, it's really important to draw from life, and it's, you know, that actually helped me a lot because I was able to kind of fill in the gaps with regards to certain details, like for example palm trees, or I don't know, bits of architecture or whatever, like, you know, because I already have the experience of actually drawing what's in the place. When I'm drawing it kind of half from memory, I can fill in the gaps a lot easier. So drawing from life is a very good and important practice, but I think you also need to add in additional practices to be able to draw from imagination, or draw a bit more conceptually or more abstractly, and that's something that I definitely need to work on. So I think this is kind of a step in the direction, just kind of drawing really big, drawing really loose. You know, I really appreciate it and really like drawing with this long stick. I think it's just so fun. Just you know, like you create such unexpected results, and you really are using the full range of motion with your shoulder. Like for example, if I wanted to do an upward curve, I literally have to turn my arm upside down, you know. So I've also started, even on a smaller scale, I've started to just use my pen kind of from the tip as opposed to holding it how you normally hold it when you're writing. And again, that gives kind of that more looseness and the freeness of the lines. So basically when you're giving yourself more space from the nib to the paper, or should I say from your grip to the paper, you are giving up more control. So that kind of gives you a more unexpected outcome for the drawing. Anyways, once I finished with the charcoal, so I used the canvas horizontally and then I flipped it vertically, and I was kind of just trying out a bunch of stuff. Then I started sticking pieces of paper in different shapes onto the canvas so that I could get this kind of layered effect. So when I would add the next set of, you know, line work, some of the line work wouldn't show through underneath. And that's another technique that I learned from the classes that I took. So on top of the charcoal, I then started to use a fine felt tip pen, a sketching pen. I used a 0.5 Staedtler. I've used that in my previous videos, and obviously because the paper is so big, that's kind of, you know, a 0.5 is actually pretty light considering how thick it normally is on like an A5 sketchbook. And also because I'm using it at the end of a stick, it's a lot lighter anyway because I'm not pressing down super hard. So I just continued drawing, again using photos as reference and just continuing to add to the layers and dimensionality of the initial piece. Then once I had done all the fine line felt tip and I kind of felt a bit bored of that, then I reshuffled the shapes. So I would get different pieces where there would be kind of blank spots, let's say, and then I went in with a brush pen, and this was where I actually started adding in the doors, which kind of gave a bit more structure, or I would say more focus to the piece, because before it was just a jumble and a bunch of different, you know, like it wasn't really clear, especially because I'd kind of blurred out the charcoal to give like a more textured layered effect, so you couldn't really see what the focus was, but the doors kind of gave it that foreground that the piece really needed, even if by the end I didn't really have like a rhyme or rhythm to how the doors were laid out on the page. I mean, composition is something that, again, something I really need to work on, but you know, it at least gave the impression of foreground, midground, background kind of thing. So that was really useful. I also used some water, and I kind of initially I used black ink which I diluted to give kind of depth to the doors themselves, but then I realized that the brush pen is not waterproof, so the ink would actually bleed itself from the lines of the door. So I just kind of added a really light water wash over the doors. Overall, I really appreciated working large. It was really freeing, but I did overthink things a lot, and I still kind of doubted myself and things like that. So I really do think I should continue doing this, and I highly recommend doing this as well for other people. Just draw on the biggest sheets of paper you have and kind of just make marks on a page and don't think about it too much. That's something that I really struggle with, but it's really important, I think, to kind of keep doing that in your practice and make it kind of a habit if you can. Alright, so that's kind of the main piece that I made traditionally, and it doesn't really have much influence on the digital piece, to be fair. It was more kind of, they both have a similar, or I should say the same concept behind them, but they're executed differently. But I think, you know, drawing all of that obviously helped me get into the mindset and helped me to understand a bit more the architecture, so that when I'm drawing it digitally, I'm more familiar with the material. So I'm not going to do like a tutorial or anything of the app. I can link a tutorial in the cards, And you can even check out their YouTube channel. They have a lot of Zoom webinars and things which, help explain the app a lot better. But it's quite a simple user interface. There's really few tools to navigate, which makes the program quite simple to use, which is both a good thing and a bad thing because you can't do really complex drawings on it. Most artists, what I've seen is either they'll make really simplistic drawings on the app itself, or they will make artwork on a separate application and then import things as layers and kind of build things up as a 3D image or 3D video. The app itself has a lot of tutorials as well that you can check out, and that's kind of how I learned the app. And they do these challenges every few weeks or so, and they have like a $250 prize. It's really cool. I think they have a really good initiative. There was a couple of things that I think the app could improve on, like for example, it crashes a bit too often, but I think that's to be expected with any kind of application that's heavy on software, I would say. And then the second thing is on the iPad Pro, at least, I was having a lot of difficulty finding the file that I was recently working on. I'd have to go into my files, into the location where it's saved, and then open it from there as opposed to opening it directly from the app, which would have been a lot easier and nicer. And of course the drawing tools, it would be slightly better if they were, a bit more sophisticated, but I think also at the same time it might just overload the iPad and it would probably crash a lot more. So yeah, maybe I think it's really good basically for simplistic, minimal drawing styles, but like the scope of it is so vast that you could pretty much do anything. So I think next time what I might try and do is just draw kind of elevations of buildings or whatever, elevations of different angles or landscapes from different angles, and then import them in the app in a 360 space so that it looks like it's a 3D model. And I think this is kind of like the perfect app for me, because even though I studied architecture, I am not a fan of 3D softwares. They're just so meh, like they're not, I don't know, I really don't like 3D softwares, SketchUp, Revit, Rhino, whatever else you have. It's just not my cup of tea, but this is so down my street, because it's just, I can sketch, but I can make things in 3D, like actual 3D, and you can like hover around it and stuff, and it's just a game changer, I think, for designers, particularly 3D designers, architects, product designers, whoever, like concept designers, whoever. It's just so amazing, and I'm really surprised that, not more people know about it. I guess it's still pretty new, but yeah, more people should definitely know about it. So by the end of my session on Mental Canvas, I came up with a completely different concept to what I had in mind. Initially I had kind of a more abstract thing in mind, but then by the end, I kind of made this, let's say, fly-through or tutorial or, I don't know, explanation video of what the historical district architecture kind of is, and the aspects of it. I explained a bit. So it was kind of like a little tour through the historical district, which, I think it works for this, because when it comes to digital art, I feel like digital art has to be a bit more structured or more understandable, and that works a lot better for this, because you're basically trying to make something that is understandable to people. So yeah, I think what I created in the end just lent itself a lot better to the application. So yeah, I mean, it was nice having two different types of outcomes with the same concept in mind, and I quite enjoyed this exercise on both fronts. I enjoyed the traditional and I enjoyed the digital, and I'm excited to kind of take it forward and see where it can go from here. So I hope you enjoyed this insight into my creative process and how I created something from start to finish, and maybe you got some ideas for your own projects. And with that, I will see you next week. Bye.